All right, what's up, Turtle Riders? How are we doing out there tonight? Good? Excellent. All right. Welcome. I'm a little late here, but we're gonna be doing a live stream of the debate in 2 seconds. Just gotta bring up the Facebook page here, get the page up. Let's find it. What's a good stream? What's a good page we can watch this on? How's everyone doing tonight, by the way? Good? Excellent. We have 0 people watching. Okay, 16. That's a good start. All right. I'm going to go ahead and... Okay, let's find it. What, NBC probably is streaming it? Live. Here it is. Okay.
Many top aides have now tested positive for the coronavirus. The president was hospitalized for several days, so the pandemic is certain to be center stage tonight.
And that's going to be evident on the stage itself at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, where plexiglass barriers have been installed between the candidates as an added safety measure.
Tonight's moderator is USA Today Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page. The debate commission says she will not be responsible for fact-checking the candidates, but our team of correspondents and analysts are standing by.
They're already starting with the
real-time fact-checking.
Good Lord.
You can go to NBC
fuck you and your fact checks.
So let's
Good
get
Lord.
started. NBC's Jeff Bennett inside the debate hall tonight.
All right, guys. Welcome to the debate.
Jeff,
we're going to be doing some live play-by-play. Oh, they have the fucking mask.
Good evening. It is impossible to overstate the degree to which the coronavirus pandemic has transformed this vice presidential debate, starting with President Trump recovering from the virus at the White House. No vice president has ever debated while a president is known to be ill. And of course, the pandemic also stretches to the stage behind me. You've got the 12 feet of space between the candidates, the plexiglass partitions. And when it comes to what we might expect the candidates themselves to say tonight, I'm told by a Biden campaign official that they don't necessarily expect Senator Harris to spar with Mike Pence. That her goal is to aim higher, to prosecute the case against President Trump as she sees it, and to lay out.
All right, so my thoughts on this, as you can see, there's goddamn plexiglass. They're 12 feet apart, and there's freaking plexiglass.
Goals anyway is to help the Trump campaign gain ground, both with those.
This entire thing, guys,
in those battleground states for
is nothing more than just fear-mongering on the part of Democrats, because this plays into what they're trying to do. The country is on fire, right? Coronavirus is killing us all. Everybody's getting it. Even the president has it. We could die. We could both get it here. We could both die tonight. This is exactly the message they want. They know it's a lie. We've seen what happens when the cameras aren't rolling. Marty Walsh, Nancy Pelosi, Gina Raimondo, whenever they're not looking, nobody ever wears a mask. It's all just theatrics. That's all this is. Masks. Give me a break. So this whole thing is just for show. They're going to try to project like this because it's not good right now, guys. The last 24 hours, like I said yesterday, it's bad right now. Like the Vegas odds have never been worse for Trump right now. Mike Pence needs to save the day tonight. We need Mike Pence to save us.
He knows this issue inside and out.
Go ahead. I've shared. I'm going to share the link right now to the show on the.
Except that he is the head of the task force, which has been so widely criticized for its conduct for months and months.
Well, he's already shit on it, you know?
He's a very experienced debater, a former talk show host, and he'll be polite in going after Harris as well as Joe Biden.
They are both skilled debaters.
And by the way,
this debate is about to get underway.
The chick who is moderating this recently wrote a book about, I want to say, Joe Biden.
Salt Lake City. Welcome to the first and only vice presidential debate of 2020, sponsored by the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm Susan Page of USA Today. It is my honor to moderate this debate, an important part of our democracy. In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
And we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic. Among other things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask, and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart.
I fucking hate it.
The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
I got a 90-second delay. Are you guys saying 90 seconds? Who cares? Whatever. As long as you're watching live, doesn't matter. Thank you. I mean, I could watch it in my living room, I guess, and give you play-by-play. Like, wake the kids up.
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here. We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus. The two campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching. One note, no one in either campaign or at the Commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask.
Oh, yeah, she's a real, right.
This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments.
How long till she asks about white nationalism?
I'll begin a segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me.
So what does it matter if you guys are watching it 90 seconds delay? What does it matter? You're going to see it either way, right?
At that point,
you need to see it. Like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay, guys. Trust me. It's the same shit. Same shit.
We want a debate that is lively, but Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are tumultuous times, but we can and will have a respectful exchange about the big issues facing our nation. Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our country so
shocking.
much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control.
Oh,
over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do?
This is actually a fair question.
New lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks?
I bet she's not going to answer. I bet she doesn't answer. She's going to evade it. She's going to evade it. Watch.
Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country.
Not an answer.
And here are the facts.
What would you do? The question is, what would you do?
210,000 dead people.
That's all they fucking got. That's all they got. Unbelievable.
Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence.
These people stand for nothing. By the way, she still hasn't answered the question.
That it will affect young people.
Reminder, what was the question, guys?
That it would be contracted because it is airborne.
The question is, what will you do? What will you do?
And they knew what was happening and they didn't tell you.
Will you have a mask mandate?
Imagine if you knew on January 28th,
I fucking hate her.
As opposed to March 13th.
These people want to run the fucking country. I cannot fucking believe this shit.
They knew and they covered it up.
Answer the fucking question.
They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of the ledger. If you wear a mask, you're on the
Is she going to be like, can you answer the question?
You don't. And in spite of all of that, today, they still don't have a plan.
Answer the question, neither do you.
They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does.
This question.
And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy.
Okay, what is it?
For contact tracing, for testing.
What does that mean?
Administration of the vaccine and making sure that it will be free for all.
Okay.
That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on and we need to save our country.
Will you have a mask mandate?
And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited.
She answered the fucking question.
To re-election based on this.
Just a free vaccine. That's their answer.
Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you. Our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China.
I mean,
President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world.
Oh, she didn't like that.
Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision.
True, get her, Pence, get her.
Xenophobic,
yep,
hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House coronavirus task force,
look at that smug little face on her.
Trump
fucking cunt.
Brought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time,
how does that moderator not be like, can you answer the question, bitch?
15 million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the delivery of billions of supplies so our doctors and nurses had the resources support they needed. And we began really before the month of February was to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe we'll have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. And quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine. I
don't remember what the question was.
Plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. American people know that this is a president who has put the health of America first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be proud of the sacrifices they have made. It's saved countless American lives.
Senator Harris, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country.
It's all they can fucking say.
Lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss. And you know, the vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward.
Right, Vincent Vega, you're absolutely right.
Learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed,
the Dems act as if there'd be zero deaths.
The vice president said, when asked, why didn't y'all tell anybody?
True.
He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Yeah, God forbid. God forbid.
So no, but Susan, this is important. And I want to add, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
I'm speaking. What a fucking cunt. Huh? This woman's going to be the president of the United States. We're going to have President Cunt. That's what this is right here. President Cunt.
How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm were you?
Because of Democrats.
Your children couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them.
They couldn't. I never did that.
Chance to respond. Vice President, you have 1 minute to respond.
You know, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family.
Oh my God.
And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts.
This woman wants to run the fucking country. I cannot believe it.
But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made.
He comes across as so much more likable than her.
If I may finish that.
Like, look at this sneering laugh.
She said,
fucking cunt.
Everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2
Don't brag about that. Don't brag
Americans.
About that.
But that's the reality.
You were lied to.
Also said to us, if we did everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice President,
one life lost is too many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior administration and congressional officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. And President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. The vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the president introduced Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
Thank you.
Man, she's so unlikable,
If I
huh?
may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise.
Yeah, the answer is it's okay.
The difference
It's okay
here
to get
is
coronavirus.
President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of healthcare,
Thank you.
the Green New Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage to be a leader, speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude.
No, because of the Democrat governors.
Administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people.
I can't.
So let's talk
These
about
people are such
caring
fucking
about
liars.
the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration.
No, because of Governor
It is asking
Cuomo.
Too much of the people.
Susan, we talk about
Charlie
It is asking
Baker.
Too much of the people. That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves.
There you go. He should be like, what about Black Lives Matter? It's a great point.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me.
Camel toe.
For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line.
Like, this is a cult.
But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking
If
it.
Dr. Fauci, just whatever Dr. Fauci says, I'll fucking do it. These people are fucking insane.
From this pandemic. In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on inauguration
I see where
day.
she's going with
Joe
this.
Biden will be 78 years old.
What happens when they die?
That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well, Susan, thank you. Although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on to the issue.
But I would like to go back.
Yes, Pence, tell her.
Because
Fuck them.
the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine Senator, in record time.
It's going to be free, according to her.
Time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives.
He's such a good debater.
The reality is
he's like the grown-up in the group.
Vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year, and it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine.
He was the perfect vice presidential pick for Trump. It really was.
Let me also say, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic.
Let's hear it.
It was 2009.
Don't go there. Cuomo.
Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu. 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu.
Talk about
if the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong. And we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty. They left an empty and hollow plan, but we still learned from it. And I think the American people, I'm going to say again, can be proud.
Vice President Pence, I'm sorry.
What we have done. And Senator, please stop undermining confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life.
Yeah, thank you, North Shore. Exactly. The time that she's getting.
I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19. Gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud. And she must be looking down on this.
Shut up, cop.
Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about
What's the question? I don't even know what they're talking about.
About the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because, I have a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first woman of color and Black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners to for-profit colleges that were taking advantage of veterans.
This is so boring.
And of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second Black woman ever elected.
We're living in the most tumultuous time ever, and I don't even know what the fuck we're talking about here. Talk about Black Lives Matter.
Classified information about threats to our nation and
Thank you, North Shore.
around the world.
Thank
I've
you.
traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in our
How many seconds are we supposed to get?
And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share a purpose, which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank
you. You really just say that Donald Trump unified the country?
President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election.
Did you just say that? You guys heard that, right?
Doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my question to each of you in turn is this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say on behalf of the president and the first lady how moved
she did
all
say
been
that. She said that she really
by
said,
the outpouring
did she
of
fuck up there?
prayers and concern for the president. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus. But the care the president received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher.
Thank
I think
you.
the choice has never been clear.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates, and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
We're just going to talk about
Absolutely.
coronavirus
And that's why
all night.
Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody.
What the fuck?
And it'd be really good to know who the president of the United States, the commander in chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right
nobody
to
cares. Nobody cares.
What is influencing
What I want to know is
president's decisions.
talk about the bail fund.
Making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest. So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there. He is honest, he is forthright. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
The American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars
she was after
in
the
taxes,
health, exactly, like
payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review, just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice President.
how many times is he going to get cut off?
Cutting taxes, rolling back regulations.
In fairness, I don't even know what he's talking about.
Energy, fighting for free and fair trade.
Right, thank you,
Thank you,
Nick.
Vice
Like, why?
President.
Like, he's too much of a Midwesterner, being an Indiana
That's a
boy.
good segue into our third
Great
topic,
segue.
which is about the
great
economy.
segue. Oh,
This has been another aspect of life for Americans that's been so affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but
positive
the
news.
job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work. Nearly 11 million jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, Blacks, and women.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Senator Harris, the
How?
Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you.
Oh, uninterrupted. Okay. North Shore, keep timing it, please.
I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
Hey, my timer out.
Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it.
Oh, good. We're going to get more taxes. Great.
Invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development, so that we were an innovation leader on the globe. Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education. So for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free. And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country, as opposed to passing a tax bill, which had the benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust recovery.
You want to shut down
the latest economic report suggests that's not happening.
And raise
taxes. Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. So when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes across the board. Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of 4 had $2,000 in savings in taxes. And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of 4 increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean,
she just said that. What? Look at that.
Fucking... We were going through a pandemic that lost 22
Can we get a chick to fight her, please? I can't hit her because she's a girl.
Added back 11.6 million jobs. Because
somebody to smack that fucking look off her face. I can't look at that face.
Energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China.
Can we get Leah with her fucking dog out of there, somebody? To fucking just put this woman in line. I can't look at that fucking face.
All of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth and opportunity, 4 more years of President Donald Trump. 2021 is going to be the biggest economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
Fucking virus.
Senator Harris.
Ruined everything.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
Repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Whoa.
I'm speaking.
The important
I'm speaking. What up? Fucking cunt. Look at that fucking face.
He's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true.
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation. Okay?
Shut the fuck up. Oh my God.
Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit when they rode the coattails of Joe Biden's success, the economy that they had at the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster. But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act, which brought health care to over 20 million Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also did is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you. If you love someone who has a pre-existing
they're coming
condition,
for you if you have breast
cancer.
cancer.
For you, if you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you. Let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster.
How about we talk about Black Lives Matter? Just talk about Black Lives Matter.
President Trump and I have a plan to improve health care and to protect pre-existing conditions for every American. But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking. Joe Biden looked at fracking and pointed and said, "I guarantee."
Talk about defunding the police.
Guarantee that we will abolish.
Like it's the biggest fucking story of the summer.
$2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said
how are they not
really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal.
You know what fracking is?
More taxes, more regulation,
Jesus, what the fuck
banning
is
fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change.
Oh my fucking God! Jesus!
The first question.
Climate.
This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have some record-setting wildfires in the West.
Climate change.
Do you believe, as the scientific community has concluded, that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly, and have made hurricanes wetter, slower, and more damaging?
My fucking God! How wet is your hurricane? My hurricane is wet as
on the environment and on conservation.
My hurricane's going to be as wet as Kamala's camel toe the second somebody with power crosses her path.
Our water is among the cleanest in the world.
Jesus Christ.
And just a little while ago, the president signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing. The issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? And President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families in their homes, and literally would crush American jobs. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's remarkable is the United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation.
Stop it.
And we've done it through natural gas and fracking.
Poor Jerry's having a heart
attack right now. People can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
There are no more hurricanes today than there were 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists use hurricanes and wildfires to try and sell their bill of goods of a Green New Deal. And President Trump and I are going to always put American jobs and American workers first.
Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal?
She's not going to answer this one. She will not answer this one, guaranteed.
So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know.
She's not going to answer
that
it.
Joe
It's too
Biden
radical. She
will
knows.
not ban fracking. That is a fact.
That is a fact. I don't care what fracking is.
I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California.
Yeah, because the gender reveals.
Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa, whose entire crops have been destroyed because of floods. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about saying we're going to deal with
How many genders are there?
Create jobs.
How many genders are there?
When asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, the science is telling us this. You know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions by 2050.
Remember when she announced my pronouns is she,
Joe
her?
has a plan.
Yeah, she believes there's like 58 genders, and she's talking about
really
science.
It has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing.
No,
we follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week.
God, who's going to smack her?
He was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. Those tax cuts delivered $2,000 in tax relief to the average family of four across America. And with regard to banning fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden denied the Green New Deal, Susan, thank you for pointing out the Green New Deal is on their campaign website.
Yes,
and as
thank
USA
you. She didn't
Today
answer
said,
that.
it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate.
They love to tire
And
AOC.
you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord.
Thank you, Katie.
Look,
Katie's going to drop her.
The American people have always cherished our environment and will continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us to retrofit 4 million American business buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump is going to put America first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care of our environment and follow the science.
But on the issue of jobs, Senator Harris, let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war.
Huh?
You lost it. What ended up happening?
Coronavirus.
Is because of a so-called trade war with China.
Yeah, the trade, they traded us COVID.
300,000 manufacturing
and we gave them
jobs.
LeBron James. That was the trade.
Farmers
we get COVID, you get LeBron.
Experienced bankruptcy because of it. We are in a manufacturing recession because of it. And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration. And the American people know what I'm talking about. You know, I think about 20-year-olds. You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent.
Where did you get that number
from?
Half?
This is where the economy is in America right now, and it is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
No, because the governor's in lockdown state.
Vice President Pitts, let me give you just 15 seconds to respond, because then I want to move on.
Well, I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China over the last several decades. And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs, and President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration saw 500,000 manufacturing jobs created. And that's exactly the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation through this pandemic. The Green New Deal, your massive new mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I just need to respond very briefly.
15 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China. We have, as our next topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Susan. Well, before I leave,
I guess we're just not going to talk about Black Lives Matter.
Voting records, if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally.
I mean, Pence is coming across
American
fine.
factories to close.
He's definitely coming across.
Automotive jobs go south of the border. President
He's
Trump
letting the moderator
to renegotiate NAFTA.
Like, how do you not?
The United States, Mexico, Canada agreement is now the law of the land. American people deserve to know. Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. I think the American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019, more liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others in the United States Senate. So now with regard to China, look, Susan, first and foremost, China is to blame for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear. Made it clear again today.
Fucking huge spider.
And China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this,
why are we still we're still talking about climate change?
That have been taking advantage of America for decades.
This is the fucking media, man. This is what they want. Climate change and coronavirus. That's all we've talked about.
Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China. And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was xenophobic. Thank you, Vice President Pence. But President Trump has stood up to China. We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold China accountable for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Are we competitors, adversaries, enemies? You'll have.
I mean, this is not an issue any American cares about. Like,
Susan,
what do you think of China? Would you consider them an adversary? Nobody's thinking about that.
Perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. What does that have to do with
China?
For example,
the question's about China, right?
They created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession. And the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war.
Can we get Biden, please? At least he's funny.
Let's talk about standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years. And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So, Joe I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. Got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the president of the United States in 2016 and is planning in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the same. But Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO. He's walked away from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism,
get this out of
he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships. And the thing that has always been part of the strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that.
Where's the buzzer?
Because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did. We stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their leader, al-Baghdadi, without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands.
Didn't we kill a couple terrorists? And by the way,
America's hearts today are with the family of Kearney.
Remember when they told us we were going to go to war with Iran? Remember that?
Tonight in Salt Lake City.
War with Iran.
Today,
the Kurds.
2 of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder.
Good for you.
Were brought to justice in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with
Jihadi John.
Beetle.
I know that is. Fuck
the reality is that
he's like a bad guy.
When Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller. Breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice President.
We destroyed the
Oh,
ISIS
my
caliphate.
fucking God.
And you talk about re-entering
Has she been interrupted
the
at all?
nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And when Qasem Soleimani was traveling to Baghdad
Thank you,
to
Vice
do harm
President
to Americans, President Donald Trump took
Thank you, Vice
out.
President Pence.
And America is safer. Our allies are safer. And the American people know President Donald Trump will never
Thank you, Vice President
take
Pence.
action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk about.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened to her is awful, and it should have never happened.
She gonna blame him?
And I know Joe feels the same way, and I know that President Obama feels the same way. But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there.
Yeah, the one we killed. Okay.
So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike.
Yeah, nobody died.
Troops in Iraq.
0 died. 0.
And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump.
What the fuck is she talking
about? Where he
about?
has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers. Donald Trump, who went to Arlington Cemetery and stood above the graves of our fallen heroes and said, what's in it for them?
It's fake news.
Because of course, he only thinks about what's in it for him.
There's no proof.
What he said.
Anonymous sources said that. Bullshit.
A great American hero. And Donald Trump says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And this is very important when you want to talk about who is the current commander in chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And you know what a bounty is? It's somebody puts a price on your head and they will pay it if you are killed.
Oh, is that what a bounty is?
Donald Trump
I had no fucking clue.
At least 6 times to Vladimir Putin.
I can't believe
brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never
they're
do
acting
that.
like this is like
but Joe Biden
a victory
would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops who are sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy.
We killed Baghdadi.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
They responded by killing nobody. Nobody fucking died.
I want to make sure we have a chance
I really have
to talk
It's
about
an unmitigated fucking success.
She has
15 seconds because
we're
trying to keep.
Good for you, Pence.
Vice President, you've had more time than she's had.
Bullfuck! You've had more time than she's had? Are you fucking kidding me?
Regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son
Pence.
is a captain in the United States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Vice President Pence,
I didn't, Vice President Pence,
I did not, excuse me, I did not create the rules for tonight.
Joe Biden.
Your campaign
agreed
to the rules for tonight's debate.
Look at that face. Look at that face.
I'm here to enforce them, which involves moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you, which is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
So I want to go ahead and move to the next topic, which is an important one, as the last topic was, and that is the Supreme Court.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Okay, this is a good one.
On Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee.
Yes.
Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling.
Will you pack the court?
Access to abortion would then be up to the states.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members. And that's what you have in President Donald Trump.
It's not getting overturned.
Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court.
Ask her if she wants to pack the court. That's what Americans want to know.
In the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you.
From that cunt, yes.
We hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees, you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus. Because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views. And
thank you, Vice President.
Your time is that when the hearing takes place,
thank you, Vice President Pence.
That Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
Voted and confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion?
Of course not.
And you have 2
minutes
a liberal. Uninterrupted.
No,
thank you, Susan. First of all, Joe Biden.
You can get an abortion at 7-Eleven if she's president.
And it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact, Joe, if elected, will be only the second practicing Catholic as president of the United States. On the issue of this nomination, Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, before, when this conversation has come up, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election.
Literally.
Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like literally in the midst of a public health pandemic.
Talk about Black Lives Matter.
210,000 people have died, and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections if they win for people with pre-existing conditions. This means that over 20 million people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums. Let's lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
You know why they're not asking about Black Lives Matter? Because the moderator knows that's weakness.
You mentioned earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says, President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was one of the toughest nuts to crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Well,
it's not going to get struck down.
Let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America.
You know you do, bitch.
Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed?
Yeah, thank you. She won't answer the question. He will.
On the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama, presidents have nominated in all 29 cases But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules.
The fact that Pence has to
answer
ask
the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question.
Why doesn't the moderator ask the question?
Really like to
How about
know
that?
if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed at the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more.
Answer the question.
In 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
Yes.
Vice President speaking.
Answer the fucking question, you cunt.
In 1864, one of the, I think, political heroes, certainly the president, I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge, not only of the White House, but the Senate.
Oh my fucking God. Nobody
But
cares.
Honest Abe said, it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime.
Would you pack the court, you dumb cunt?
Land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people
are
are voting right now.
Would you pack the
court?
court?
And it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you.
Will you pack the fucking court?
They're voting right now.
Yes or no?
To know if you and Joe Biden are going to
Thank you.
pack the Supreme Court.
The moderator won't ask the fucking question.
Let's talk about packing.
You once again gave a non-answer.
Yes.
Joe Biden
Answer the
gave a
fucking
non-answer.
question.
The American people deserve a straight answer.
It's so cute.
The straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election.
Camel toe.
Men and women, I got to tell you,
She's going to get a stern talking to from her people about this. How to not come across as a cunt.
Separation of powers, you need
Good
to
Lord.
the Biden-Harris ticket.
This is going great. This is going good. She's helping out a lot tonight. I'll tell you that much.
Separation powers in a 9-seat.
But the moderator ain't.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about
Please.
that.
Yes.
I'm about to.
Okay.
So
this is like
the Trump-Pence
imagine being married to this woman.
Has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Talk about packing a court. Let's have that discussion.
Right, thank you, Senator. Let's go ahead and talk about the issue of racial justice.
Oh my fucking God!
So I think maybe the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question.
Thank you.
But I think the American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President.
Yeah. This
In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into her apartment. The police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken.
Yeah, should we protesting?
Unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, you know, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed.
What?
During which?
Answer the fucking question. What would you? She was a prosecutor. What would you charge them with?
And killed under the knee.
Oh, we didn't know that.
An armed, uniformed police officer.
Oh, what?
And people around our country of every race.
She's so full of shit.
Every age, of every gender.
This means nothing. This means
perfect
nothing.
Strangers to each other.
Yes.
Marched.
And
Shoulder to
spread
shoulder,
coronavirus,
arm
by
in
the
arm,
way.
fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests. And I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana, and
we're going to get rid of bail. Okay,
the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana.
Good.
This is time for leadership on a
Wait, didn't she send people to jail? Didn't she send Tulsi? Tulsi, where are you?
Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you.
Didn't she send pot dealers to prison?
Was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
See what he says.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system.
Yes, good answer.
Refuse the evidence.
Good answer.
And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor,
yes,
you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion.
Roasted, get her.
I think, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. Justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting.
Yes, finally. Pence is doing great.
I mean, it
He's
really
bringing up
astonishing.
the shit she
Flora
wants.
Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. Was burned to the ground.
Yes, bring up the bail fund.
Rioters and looters.
Please bring it up.
And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that America is systemically racist.
Yes, go there.
As Joe
thank
Biden
God
said,
for
that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities. Is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day. And President Trump and I stand with you.
Yes, great message.
And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room.
Ooh.
And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. But we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American neighbors and all of our minorities.
Thank you,
Under President Trump's leadership,
Thank you, Vice
we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done since day one, and is improve the lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice
Record
President
unemployment, record
Vice
investments in
President Pence, your time
education,
is
and we'll
up.
fight for school choice for all of our members.
Thank you, Vice
I'd like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the vice president on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage
Did you bail people out of
who
jail?
was personally prosecuted. Everything from child sexual assault to homicide.
Yeah, and pot.
I'm the
And
only
pot.
one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. The reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week, the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
Pence really have a fly in his head?
And
Not true.
it
Get
wasn't
rid of
like
that.
he
What is
didn't
that
have a
thing?
chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down.
He said, sure.
And then he said, when pressed, stand back.
Yeah.
Stand by.
So what? What does that mean?
And this is a part of a pattern.
He should have brought up the bail fund.
Donald
I'm telling you.
Trump's.
She bailed rioters out of jail.
He called Mexicans rapists and criminals.
No, he didn't.
He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. On the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets, anti-Semitic slurs. And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said,
"No, very
fine people on both sides."
Lie. Another fucking lie. Another fucking lie. It's been debunked a billion times.
Joe Biden will be a president who brings our
just never
country
get questioned.
together.
Senator Harris,
And
if Biden wins, this is a media
beauty in our
crafted
diversity
fucking win.
And the fact that we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did.
Ooh.
Comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle.
Yes, get him.
I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments. He condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists.
Exactly.
And has done so repeatedly.
It's been debunked.
Concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis.
He's so much better.
President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish.
Thank you, Pence.
This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
Are you fucking kidding me?
When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California, you increased the disproportionate incarceration of blacks in California.
This is just so obvious.
You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to pass the First Step Back on Capitol Hill.
There's the face again.
I mean, the reality is your record speaks for itself. President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President.
We fought for educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our members.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll do it for full.
Thank you. You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election itself.
He attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let's talk about how you sent people to jail for pot.
Because we're running out of time.
I appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only.
Thank you, Senator.
Oh,
to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself.
Wow, she was not used to that.
I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias, because yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe, and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election.
Here we go.
If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next?
Like, why are they asking? Like, what would you do if you lost?
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket.
It's not me. It's not me. It's on there.
Of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign.
Someone's got coronavirus.
And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote.
For
vote
Trump.
Early.
For Trump.
Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power. And if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote.
What?
Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote.
Didn't you call him a racist?
Joe said, please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C.
and the good news is,
Joe Biden's
despite
been a part of for 47
the bullshit,
years,
Pence is killing her.
President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. When you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the president of the United States.
I don't ever want Pence to be president. Pence is
now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that'll create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election.
Man,
we know we're going to have
great
confidence
debate for Pence tonight.
And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are two candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along? And then she added, your examples could make all the difference to bring us together, end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. It's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. And I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States, one very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the two of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. That's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument, but we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you.
In times of need. And we've especially learned that through the difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be. That is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, you know, that brings me to Joe Biden. One of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him, like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle.
What do these fucking mean? Who the fuck is Brecklin?
Working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president.
Brecklin needs a wedgie.
Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. I mean, you have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership. And it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote.
Thank you,
to determine the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First Lady, and everyone who is battling COVID-19. The second presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us then. Good evening.
So, fuck, yeah, I mean.
And good evening once again.
Where's Brecklin at? Where's Brecklin at?
Savannah Guthrie, the end of a 90-minute debate between Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris. Fair to say a lot of people holding their breath after last week, wondering what
the fucking mask. Are you fucking kidding me? What a fucking pussy. That about sums it up right there. That, she's riding some white penis tonight, let me tell you. She is riding some white penis. Look at that. Look at that with the mask. Oh, my God. What a beta male. What a fucking beta male.
As opposed to a debacle. And for that, I think a lot of Americans are breathing a sigh of relief. A lot of different topics covered. And it was mostly civil. There was some back and forth, but
wears a mask?
Discussed. COVID was discussed, the Supreme Court. A lot of talk about manufacturing and jobs.
All right.
It's a real tell that
anyway,
this battleground, this campaign is being fought.
Fuck them. Okay, so I don't know what you guys thought of that. I'm going to go read the reviews a little bit later, but like I said, like Brenda said, it whipped, man. Pence whooped his ass. I'm looking at like liberal Twitter people right now, and they're all saying the same thing. They're like, Kamala Harris was harder on Joe Biden, much harder on Joe Biden than she was on Mike Pence, because there's nothing she could say to Mike Pence. Mike Pence, I've been saying it. I've been saying this on Jerry Callahan podcast for a while. Mike Pence's strength is debating. This is what he's always been good at, is debating. And you just saw right there why. He's cool, calm, collected. He brings facts. He brings receipts. He knows exactly what the fuck he's doing. He's a perfect sit-down debater too. And he smoked her, man. He fucking smoked her. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if that'll do anything. Usually vice presidential debates don't. But this time's a little bit different, especially because of her, right? With him, people look at him. He's not going to be president anyway. Doesn't really matter. But he brings he's like the adult in the room when him and Donald Trump are there, Whereas with her, people look at her, it's like, oh, it's like 50-50. She might be president in 3 years, like 50-50. The way Biden's brain is going right now, it's turning to mush in front of us. She's going to be running the country. And people saw that tonight, and America doesn't like a cunt. We don't like cunts here. No cunts. And you saw what she is tonight. So we'll see what happened. I'd rather Ted Cruz. Yeah, I'd take Ted Cruz too, But people ask me before, do you want Pence to be president? No, I don't want Pence to be president. I don't. He's not right for he's the perfect vice president. It's it. We don't need him to go any higher than that. He's the perfect vice president. Leave him there. We'll get somebody else in 2024. Kristi Noem or Josh Hawley or one of those guys. It's gonna be exciting. I'll even take Lion Ted, but not. Mike Pence is he can be vice president again. I'd be down with that. So, all right, guys. The spider fucking disappeared. But anyway, I guess we will see you guys tomorrow night for the next episode of the live show. All right. Peace, Turtle Riders. Thanks for joining me.